Good evening, and I'll be talking, as you're from Harrow and Hillingdon and on the west side of London, I'll try to concentrate on that part more. And in fact, it's a very big subject, so I won't really have time to talk much about the Thames east of London. I hope you'll we'll find that okay. Right. So I'll be talking first of all about the origin of the Thames and high-level gravels to the west of London and the crag inheritance that there is there, because that does relate to how the Thames was initiated. Then I'll start talking about the Thames itself and talk about how terraces were formed and the role of climate in that process. I'll move on to glacial diversion of the Thames, and finally a brief excursion into Essex. I think by that time I'll have covered quite a lot of my 45 minutes or whatever is the allocated time. Okay, so to start with, this map shows the extent of the red crag formation, or the crag group in general, and the red crag in particular. Unfortunately, there aren't very many names now on this, but it extends at least to Stansted Mount Fitchett, near the airport, but also there are outliers of it further west. And here we have just a quick view of some of the sorts of fossils that you get from the red crag. I'm sure most of you have seen most of this sort of thing, but I hope it will bring back some memories. And then if we move on, here are some fossils found at a place called Rothamsted near Harpenden. And you can see there that we've got plenty of fossils there, or rather enough fossil evidence there to link Rothamsted with the red crag. So that's to the west of the main outcrop, which goes as far as Stansted Mount Fitchett. And so to look at this in a different way, so here's the red crag and the map I was just showing you, and here's a section, and you can see we go inland to Stansted Mount Fitchett, but if you extend, you do find remnants. Rothamsted is pretty secure, but then we get to Little Heath and Lane End, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But throughout this area, the fossils and sedimentary structures suggest depths of about 25 meters. So when those deposits were being laid down, that was relatively flat like that. So Rothamsted establishes that we are dealing with the red crag, and because these were laid down initially fairly horizontally, obviously the west has risen. So we need to examine that a little bit. So here at Little Heath, we have, it's not a terribly good photograph, it's the best one I could find at the time. But here you have rounded gravels, and above that, of course, sand. No fossils, so the evidence to link with the red crag and with Rothamsted isn't the strongest, but the heavy mineral assemblage from the sand matrix of the gravel is akin to that at Rothamsted. So that's the basis, the heavy minerals found in the sands down here in the rounded gravel that make the link. But there are also chert pebbles. The gravel is most likely rounded pebbles, but also there are some chert pebbles in there, raising the possibility of a tributary from the Weald. And at Lane End, I think that is, well, that's debatable. I think it's just gravels there, mostly flints, again, possibly a few chert, so some quartzites, I think, come in there as well. But possibly it's, I think it's Peter Worsley thinks that's just a slumping deposit of some sort, but to be disregarded. But anyway, assuming that it can be regarded as part of the Red Crag floor. We can also move to Nettle Heath, where again fossils were found, and Headley Heath sandy deposits. And if you actually go along with the assumption that all these points are part of the Red Crag, you can then work out contours, as it were, as the Red Crag falls away towards the coast. You saw the incline down towards the coast before. So these are contour lines illustrating that. And again, it's shown here, Lane End and Little Heath, thought to be at Red Crag. But there is a little bit of debate about that. Again, most of these high-level gravels, they all tend to have, ifs and buts about them. So you can expect perhaps changes in interpretation there. So another possible outcrop comes here at Harrow Weald, part of your ground, as it were. So here's some of these high-level gravels at Stanmore Common. And here's the location. And it's a triple SI. And here's a picture I've downloaded of the area. Now, Stanmore Gravel, it's a little bit lower than the outcrops attributed to the Red Crag, but there's still debate as whether it's marine or fluvial. So the rounded flint pebbles and some microscopic features on the sand grains, they suggest a marine origin. But the class assemblage also includes some small quartz pebbles, typical of those in the lower greensand, and also occasionally you find lower greensand chert. So that possibly suggests a fluvial origin from a tributary from the south, feeding into an early course of the Thames. And an argument is put forward that possibly the marine characteristics have been inherited from the Provenance area, from the Wealden area. So you can see the sort of argument that's developing. But David Bridgeland, who did the GCR volume on the Thames, he comments that further research on the deposit at Harrow Weald Common and other sites in the Stanmore and Northall gravels is required to test this theory and prove more information about the paleogeography of the London Basin during the poorly understood late Pliocene, early Pleistocene period. The goal of such work would be a more complete understanding of the early history of the Thames. And then of the exposures, he said, as a rare exposure of these early tributary deposits, the Harrow Weald Common site will be essential to any reinterpretation of the early history of the Thames catchment. So there you're being issued a call to arms, as it were. So perhaps you can think about that in your agenda for future years. But now to move on to something rather less controversial, as it were. So to talk about the paleogeographical evolution of southeast Britain, and particularly the Thames. So here you can see what I was just talking about, essentially, the Crag Sea coming well inland and tributaries coming in. There would have been tributaries from the west, tributaries from the south. And then, so that was, I can't quite see, that was sort of a very early Pleistocene, or very early Pleistocene or late Pliocene. And then as we come into the early Pleistocene, you can see that the Red Crag Sea is beginning to retreat, so it's not going as far west as it was. And you can see rivers beginning to develop, particularly here, the Thames system, and it was extending, but you can see the Thames possibly, it was extending into the Midlands and possibly right through to North Wales, and also an arm of it extending into South Wales. I'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. And there was another early river which doesn't have any existence now in the landscape, the Bytham River, the lower part approximates to the River Waveney, but the rest of it doesn't approximate to anything. Well, perhaps that to the River Soar there, but most of it doesn't approximate to anything today. But you might notice that the Thames is going far to the west, and the Bathing River is just sort of coming in here. But by the time we go to the middle Pleistocene, by the time we get to the Anglian glaciation, the Thames has lost its headwaters due to piracy by the Bathing River and possibly another river, the Mathon River. So things were happening. As the Red Crag Sea retreated, so was laid down a series of gravels here, which are now known as the Kesgrave gravels, representing, and the early Thames. So a number of different terraces, as you can see here. So here's the Red Crag high up at the very top. Then at Nettlebed, just the other side of High Wycombe, there are some interglacial deposits and the nearby gravel, which more or less stands on its own at the moment. So it might be an early part of the Thames, but we can't really link it in with very much more. But then we have a bit lower down the Stoke Road gravels and Western Green gravels, Satwell, Beaconsfield, and Gerrard Cross gravels, and then the Anglian ice comes in, and that changes the whole story. And I'm just going to concentrate on this bit now to begin with. So there was that. So just to show that in another way, so there's the Nettlebed gravel, possibly two or three linkages, but we can't really sort of take it way down. But then we have Stoke Road gravel, Western Green gravel, Satwell, and so on. So these gravels were laid down in a meaningful way, but at lower altitudes in pulses, as it were. And again, just to show the sort of Middle Thames bit, the bit being Hertfordshire, there's St Albans. So you have the Stoke Road gravel mentioned up there, Westland Green, Satwell, Beaconsfield, Gerrard's Cross, and then the Winter Hill, which is to do with when the ice actually arrived. And again, just to try and show you that the ice, so the river was actually going through what is now the Colne Valley, past Watford, St Albans, Hertfordshire, and out into Essex. So there's, on this section from the Geological Survey map, they're just showing some of the lower stuff, the Gerrard's Cross gravel, and then another one, the West Mill gravel here. Unfortunately, the names of the gravels tend to vary a lot over time. So it is quite hard to relate them all together too easily. So here we are. Here's the Stanmore gravel up here. And then here's the Colne Valley going up through Watford, and little bits of the Gerrard's Cross gravel here, and then some of the West Mill gravel further down, which I showed you in a section a moment ago. And we're now moving into a situation where we think, or we're pretty certain, we're more than think, that there was now a climatic control on what was happening. Before, the uplift for the west part of the area, the initial uplift which raised the Red Crag to the great heights, the number of reasons put forward, possibly there was some effects from when the alpine orogeny occurred. The compression there was actually felt in Britain. Also, the opening up of the Atlantic again put pressure on Western Britain, and also there are volcanic plumes, as it were, in Iceland, again, which can affect Western Britain. So the uplift there seems to be more due to tectonic processes